So think about shooting content and shooting a commercial and all the great craft services aside, there's a process to this, right? And there's a process to the pre-production meetings and the storyboarding and all that, and then the shooting and the editing and so forth. But usually it's a director and a camera and that's it. These cameras actually have sometimes 80 lenses on them, okay? And you have to think about all the various ways that somebody might engage in this experience and look all around them and try and figure out these different storylines from multiple perspectives. But it's also interesting because you even have to think about like the camera angles and like all the people on set just standing over there. They're in the shot now, so there's those kind of practical things as well. But the more interesting part to me is like trying to not necessarily control somebody's experience, but almost try to highlight different things and try and move them along in an interesting storyline. Developing these films, we then really wanted to make sure that we got them out there in the right way. You have to have your goals, as we all do, pretty clear. First of all, just by doing VR and putting this out there in the right way, it further promoted Mini's inventiveness. We wanted to get people to learn about Mini Connected and kind of engaged in the experience, so we use these films in a way to kind of connect with people, if you will. We also wanted to make sure that people were viewing the films, so we obviously were counting those. But more than anything else, we wanted to make sure that we were connecting with a target audience that Mini has today as our owners, but also we need to keep evolving and we need to keep making sure that we're moving forward and connecting with this group of people that we call the aspirational creative class. So in looking at trying to get these films out there, you know, you could do things and just post them and hope people come. We all know that that doesn't work anymore. You could kind of do some generic advertising online in the right spaces for people who have VR headsets. That can work a little bit, but it's pretty small at this point. What we set out to do is we actually found in our objectives kind of different partners to tackle different things that we wanted to do. So we worked with YouTube, we worked with Fast Company, and we worked with the New York Times. And each of these partners brought a different thing to the table. YouTube, in terms of its broad reach, and they have a 360 channel, and we put together a couple things I'll show you in a minute. With Fast Company, it was really about connecting with that aspirational creative class, and I'll show you what we did with them. And then with the New York Times, they had an interesting opportunity where they were distributing those Google Cardboard glasses to Sunday Times subscribers. And they delivered them to over 1 million people and put them into people's hands. So that was a really interesting opportunity, not only to get these films seen, but also to do something pretty progressive, and I'll show you what the New York Times did. So we first of all took our message to make sure that Mini Connected was coming through clearly. This is one of the things that we did. We actually did some print with a couple of those publications, Fast Company and the New York Times. And then this was a YouTube masthead takeover that we did. And again, part of this was we thought about maybe delivering the entire 6-minute film in the masthead, but we realized what we needed to do was get people like ready to view these in the right way. So you need to put on your headset, you need to make sure that you're experiencing this, but we were kind of teasing people and giving them a sneak peek into what they were going to see. So that drove a lot of views, that got a lot of people to the Mini Connected website and accomplished the first goal. The second thing was with Fast Company, and Fast Company obviously has a great, not only publication, but they have a great credibility with the entrepreneurs and the creative class. And VR, which has been around for a while, especially in the gaming community and in other different industries, but really hasn't taken on the maybe mass approach and allowed marketers to come in yet. And it's not mass yet. It's still like coming up, but it really has the opportunity to kind of bring people into experiences in very unique ways. So with Fast Company, we actually partnered up with them and developed with their editorial team they developed a really interesting piece about virtual reality in the industry, and they interviewed different people, and they put together online content, which you can still see on fastcompany.com, as well as a booklet. And this booklet, as well as the headsets and some other information, we actually sent out, they sent out on our behalf to their list of 1,000 most creative people in the world, and got those into really interesting people's hands, talked about VR, and brought to you by Mini. So that was an interesting approach for us. And then finally with the New York Times, I mentioned this. Anybody here still get the physical New York Times paper? I do on the weekends. Yeah, cool. So hopefully you got the headset. This was a couple months ago now. And what really is interesting is what the New York Times did in terms of not only this distribution method, but when you think about kind of getting your marketing message out there, you do have to get it not only into the right hands, but also where people are receptive and when they're open to receiving stuff. But then with this technique, they have to have the technology to view it in the right way. So for them to get these out there to 1 million people was huge. But what they really also did is they created an app. And our films were featured in their app, but their content actually blew ours away, which is fine, because people came to their app to really see this really powerful content. And I recommend that you would download NYT VR as an app, use your headset that you got, take a look at that. It actually brings you into experiences of, there's several now that they've created, but they shot these films in refugee camps and went into these experiences. And there was a lightning bolt that went off for me when I got to see the content before it was released. I was watching it, and I had the earphones on, and I'm kind of looking around and seeing what's going on. And then in my ears, I heard like a faint kind of helicopter or plane or something, and it became louder and louder. And when I looked up, I saw the plane coming, and I saw food drops happening. And it was amazing. Like, you could see this happen. And as the food then hit the ground, people from everywhere started running out and grabbing the food. And to me, this was one of the most powerful things, because it not only, like, from a communication standpoint, kind of brought all your senses to life, but it also, I think VR is one of the most powerful empathy engines. So if you just read about that story of refugee camps, which many of us have, you get a certain understanding. If you're actually like feeling like you're there, and I'm telling you, you can feel the power of these people running for this food, I had a whole new empathy for the people who were in this experience.